These videos are brought to you by the Osceola Council on Aging, serving all generations, and Graduate Nutrition and Culinary Department at Keiser University. This is an example of a food box you would receive from your local food pantry. Chef is going to demonstrate how you can best maximize the ingredients and make some nutritious, tasty meals. We purchased 5 items that were not in the box: an onion, garlic, soy sauce, celery, and sesame seeds. These items were purchased for a little over $7. So now I'll turn it over to Chef.
Hi, I'm Chef Bott. I'm here at Keiser University Center for Culinary Arts. Today, the dish is going to be inspired by Hispanic flavor profile. So we have 3 spices here that is related to what's considered the Southwest here in America, but it's typically also used in some Hispanic cuisine. So this is not in your box, but you can get this anywhere, and it is chili, some cayenne pepper, and some cumin, okay? So we're going to add that to one of our dish. We're doing 3 different recipes here. The first recipe, I'll start because the beans take a little bit longer to cook. It's been soaked for overnight. Everything else comes in the pantry box. So we're going to start out with staging the flavor. So that flavor, we typically start with something fresh, aromatics. So we start with garlic, fresh onions, and celery. These aren't in the box, but these are very inexpensive to buy. So we'll start by chopping up our garlic. Go ahead and mash the garlic. So we make sure we get the peels off of this thing. Once we do that, we're going to go ahead and dice our onions and our celery. And I'm pretty sure a lot of different people dice their onions a little differently. Some people don't have cutting boards and they'll dice up from here. But I'm going to show you how to use a cutting board to dice your onions. So go ahead and we're going to coarsely chop up our garlic. We're going to use all these items in all the 3 dishes. That's going to add that added flavor to the already flavored ingredients that are in the cans. So I typically would peel the onion from the top first and pull down so it's easier to work with. So once you peel it, you just want to cut the bottom off. And then let's get rid of these from our cutting board space here. Cut the onions in half. We really just need half an onion for the whole dish, so we'll save the other half for something else. So to dice, I hold the onion still and take my knife and follow through to the end. I'll do 2 horizontal cuts and then a few vertical cuts, and then slice down on the face. And now you see that it's already diced. This technique is very simple, and you can save the rest of the onion for something else, for adding flavor to other ingredients. Okay, so now we have our garlic, we have our onions. Then we're going to start dicing our celery. Take the brown part off. Take the back end off as well. We'll cut this in half. And we'll cut it into sticks. Okay. So it's good practice to have your vegetable to be the same thickness so that it cooks evenly. Because if you have one that's way too big and one that's too small, you're going to get an uneven cook. So try to get it as even as possible. So now we have a good base to add flavor to our ingredients. Okay, so I'm going to start with the beans. We're going to go ahead and heat up our pan. Of course, we're going to start with a little bit of oil, and this does come in your box. Just enough to coat the very bottom of your pan. So now we're going to add our garlic. And you hear it sizzling already. Our onions and celery. Kind of stir this around a little bit to make it a little bit translucent, lightly brown. That's going to bring out the sweet flavor of this these aromatics, onions, celery, and the garlic. Next, we'll add some beans, and I'm using pinto beans that came in the pantry box. We're going to go ahead, because it's a starch, I want it to absorb all of that oil before I actually put water in here. And the seasoning, the flavor. That should be enough for 2 servings. Then while this absorbing all the oil from the aromatics, we're going to add our seasoning. And the seasoning that you saw earlier, it is dark chili, cumin, little cayenne pepper, and some salt. So we're right into the pan. Notice I'm not putting any liquid in there yet. So I want the beans to soak up all this wonderful flavor from the seasoning and from the oil, the aromatics. Okay? All right? And you can see that the oil is interacting with the seasoning, and you can see the color in the oil. That means you're doing great. You're doing fantastic. It's coming out. The flavor is just going to absorb right into the beans, and beans are starchy, and starch always pick up a lot of liquid. Next, we're going to add our liquid. I'm just using plain water. Now, if you have it, if you have stock, you can put stock in there. You can put, chicken stock or any other flavor stock you wish to put in there. That'd be great. So we're going to bring this to a boil. Since this takes a little bit of time to cook, I'm going to go ahead and put it in the back and let it stew for a little bit longer until the beans becomes nice and tender. Then we'll start on our next dish, which is the rice. Okay, the next dish is going to be a rice. And again, this technique is called a pilaf. Pilaf is just basically putting aromatics in there, adding a little cooking fat. You can use butter, oil, or you can use any pork fat. It'd be great. It had a lot of flavor in it, so we're going to go ahead and add our aromatic, our celery, onions, and carrots, and garlic. Okay? And I'm using this throughout the whole dish, so that the beans is a side dish. The main dish is going to be the tuna cakes, and that's inspired by a dish called the bacalao cake that's come from Spain, using salted cod. That's what bacalao, I'm sure you would know what bacalao is. It's a salted cod. It's been layered, and you have to soak the salted cod 3 times before you actually take that salt out. And even so, you don't add any salt to the ingredients because there's tons of salt in bacalao. So the same idea that goes with the tuna. Tuna store in a little bit of salt brine a little bit. So we're not really adding any salt to it. So this is getting nice and translucent. That's what we want. And we're using long grain white rice from the box. And you see here, this is ramen noodle. No, we're not putting ramen noodles into our rice, but we're going to use the seasoning that's already in here, and we'll use the noodle for other things. You can put it in salads as a crunchy factor. You can put it in, you can cook it, boil it, and then make stir fry out of it using the aromatics I have in there. A little bit of soy sauce, maybe some eggs, and you have a nice stir fry. So we're going to take this has bold flavor, a lot of chicken, a lot of seasoning, so we're not adding any salt to this dish. So next thing what I'll do, I'll turn this down a little bit because I don't want this to brown off too much. I'm going to go ahead and add my rice. And what I'm doing is maybe about a cup of rice, 2 cups of rice. And 2 cups of rice is going to be enough to serve about four people. Okay? So I don't want to put my liquid in there yet, but I'm going to go ahead and stir it up and allow the rice to absorb the oil. Because remember that starch works best if it absorbs the flavor of the oil and the aromatics first before you put the liquid in. Now I'm going to add my ramen seasoning. Also it's a chicken flavor base. Okay, add that in there. I'm going to stir it up really nicely. And our beans are stewing really nicely back there. Now we're going to add our liquid, because as you can see, the rice is getting a little toasty, it's shiny, it's being coated with all this wonderful flavor that's in our aromatics. Then we're going to add our water. Usually in a pilaf, it is a 2-to-1, I mean 2 cups to 1 ratio, or just enough to go about ½ an inch or an inch above the rice. We're going to bring this to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, we're going to let it simmer for a little bit until all the liquid evaporates. And once it evaporates, we're going to go ahead and cover it up, allow the rice to steam for another 10-15 minutes. It'll be done to perfection. Okay, so we're going to let that boil. Once that is going to boil, we're going to go ahead and stir up our bacalao cake. We start out with 2 beans. You can actually use the liquid from the tuna can so that it'll soak up our potato and our pancake mix. And I'm pretty sure these have a lot of flavor already, a lot of sodium. Therefore, you don't want to add too much to this ingredient. You get all that in there. We don't want to waste anything that came in the pantry. And then we're going to go ahead and add our seasoning. This time we're not going to make any, we're not going to brown it off. We're not going to increase the flavor, but we're going to go ahead and put it in there so that it's going to get a crunch factor. Once you pan fry this, it's going to give a nice flavor to it. I typically would add just a little bit of oil. And then my next ingredients will be my potato. It's going to give us a nice thick consistency. And our binder will be our pancake mix. And I'm going to add probably just 1 egg in here to ensure that it binds together. Okay. And then we're going to mix this up with a spatula to make it look like a nice batter. So of course we're going to need a little bit of liquid to help with this to come together. So we'll add a little bit of water to allow that starchy potato powder to come to a batter. Okay, so the rice is almost there. It's absorbing that liquid, and the liquid's almost evaporated. We're going to turn it down just a little bit, and we can continue to mix this batter. Okay. Okay, this is going to be a beautiful tuna cake. All right, so we'll let that sit right there. We're going to cook this tuna cake a little bit, and we're going to go ahead and turn this off. I'm going to put it in the back burner and steam it, allow it to cook all the way. All right, so now we're going to use a different pan. Now, if you don't have a non-stick pan, you can also use a regular pan, but what you want to do is to heat the pan up first, add the oil, pull the oil out, and heat it again. That kind of gives a little layer in that pan so that it resists food from sticking. But I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm sure somebody out there has a non-stick pan. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. I'm going to use a portion scooper, or you can use a spoon, however you feel like portioning out. Go ahead and add my oil. This does need, even though it's a non-stick pan, a little bit of oil won't hurt so that it pan fries nicely. Okay, let's get this pan hot. I'm going to do 2 cakes for 1 plate. So once that's done, I'm going to bring that over and plate it for you. Okay, go ahead and scoop one out. And this is a small non-stick pan, so we'll do one at a time. So we'll start with this. We'll take our spoon and just going to press it down. And let that fry it up just a little bit. So I like to do is shape it while it's cooking. And you can see that the binder, the protein, it's going to keep its shape. So we're going to go ahead and push it so that it gets a nice round shape, because we call it a cake. We're going to shape it like a pancake or a round cake. Okay. So now if you slide it around, and you can see on the edges, it's turning nice and brown. If you can, I'm going to show off a little bit, I'm going to flip it. If you can't do it, then you just go ahead and use a spatula. So we're going to take this, just kind of flip it right over. And a little bit of practice, I'm sure you can do it. We're going to use a nice, beautiful square plate. And that's cooking up nicely. Ensure that it's cooked on the bottom. Now lift it up just a little bit, and it does look like it's cooking nicely. I'm going to put this right onto the plate. Put it up here. This is the main item on this plate. So one looks pretty big, but if you're really hungry, we'll do two. The pan is still hot. Let's go ahead and add a scoop of this beautiful batter. Hopefully. I'm going to press it down, making sure that's nice and thin so it cooks all the way through. All right. It's nice and hot, so it's cooking a little faster in the beginning than we had originally in the first one. So we kind of swirl this around a little bit and keep an eye on it. So your edge is getting brown a little bit. And go ahead and flip it. And let that cook a little bit longer. Okay. I'm going to turn this down just a little bit, and then we're going to check on our rice and our beans. Okay, we have our beans. We'll just put it right over here on the side for now. I'm going to put the cake right here. One stack on the other. And then we're going to check on our rice. All right, so could let this steam a little bit longer, but we're just going to plate it right away, so you know, you already know how to cook rice. Most people know how to cook rice. Rice is a staple in a lot of culture, and we're going to put the beans right next to it. So this is like a gourmet meal out of the pantry box. It's amazing how we can get this full-on meal and just in these pantry boxes are incredible. Put the beans right on the side, and there you have it, our tuna cake.